Do international organisations really help to improve the lives of girls in developing countries through education? To tackle this question, this animation will explore aspects of globalisation and international education before looking at the example of Afghanistan and the work of some international organisations there. So first, let's take a look at globalisation. Globalisation can be defined as the cultural, economic and political systems of the world becoming more interconnected through transport, trade and technological advancements, which is enabling individuals, corporations and nation-states to reach around the world farther, faster, deeper and cheaper than ever before. This greater level of interconnectedness has allowed countries across the world to join together and create an international model of education by sharing education policies and practices globally with the help of international organisations. An international organisation is an organisation that can be governmental or non-governmental, which has an international presence and may have members from many nations of the world. Some of the most well-known international organisations are the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the United Nations and its associated organisations such as UNESCO and UNICEF. The Education for All Act is a key example of an international policy set up by international organisations which had a global effect on education. The Education for All Act was developed during the World Conference for All in 1990, when 155 countries and 150 organisations came together and agreed to commit participating countries to providing universal access to primary education by the year 2000, and to achieve gender equality in education by eliminating barriers to education which girls face. Sounds positive, right? It might sound encouraging, but the goals had not been met by the start of the new millennium. Population growth across the world led to 113 million children with no access to primary education, and 2 out of 3 of these children were girls. This meant that the number of children out of school was higher than in 1990. Since then, both the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals have tried to work towards universal access to primary education and gender equality, first in 2015 and now by 2030 as part of the Sustainable Development Goals. With these goals being pushed back further yet again, will they ever be reached? And does it mean international organisations are not doing enough to help? And even if they are achieved one day, will everyone really benefit as much as these international organisations lead us to believe? International organisations are often influenced by the wealthy, powerful Western countries which make up a substantial amount of their membership. And so the international model of education which international organisations construct reflects this. Some people think that this dominant Western style of education being imposed on less developed nations can lead to cultural loss in developing countries. As seen in the Schooling the World documentary, this may lead to exploitation, erosion of cultural traditions, and loss of native languages. However, other people see the introduction of Western-style education as being welcomed by developing countries, and that by having a Westernised education, the citizens of developing countries will be given more positive opportunities in life as a result. But how does all this actually affect developing countries? And do international organisations really help improve the lives of girls in developing countries through education? Let's take a look at Afghanistan as an example. In Afghanistan, only 39% of adults are literate, which is one of the world's lowest rates. And due to its patriarchal society, only 13% of those who can read and write are female. The number of male pupils in primary and secondary education is about 4.6 million, compared to only 2.4 million girls. The gender inequality is also apparent in teaching, with only about 3 out of 10 primary school teachers being female. If we compare this internationally with the UK, we can see that 70% of teachers are female, and that in 2012 to 2013, 10.7% more girls achieved 5 grade A star to C at GCSE compared to boys, showing that the situation is actually the opposite in the UK. So why, when the education of girls and women is seen as key to reducing poverty and improving living standards, are girls so disadvantaged within education in Afghanistan, even with international policies in place which are supposed to combat this? there are many barriers which can stop girls accessing education in Afghanistan. Access to schools may be limited, with girls having to walk long and unsafe routes to school each day, especially in remote areas and in times of conflict. During Taliban rule, girls in Afghanistan were forbidden from attending school, and so no girls officially attended school over fears for their safety. Time and money spent on conflict has meant that school infrastructure is in bad condition, with half of schools not having clean water and adequate sanitation facilities. This can restrict access to education. Culture also plays a big part, with boys typically being favoured over girls. Girls are usually expected to marry young, with many being forced into child marriage, and traditionally retain their honour by staying at home and caring for the household, meaning education is not usually an important part of life for girls in Afghanistan. These cultural expectations may also explain why the percentage of female teachers in Afghan schools is very low, and this lack of female role models for girls at school is another barrier to education which girls face. So how can Afghanistan's education problem be solved? Part of the Afghan government's Women, Peace and Security agenda aims to increase access to education and higher education for girls and women, and through working with international organisations to initiate more education schemes across the country, the belief is that gender inequality can be combated and girls can become empowered. These schemes involve improving school infrastructure, quality of teachers, and working in cooperation with local communities. UNICEF, the Japanese government, and the Afghan Ministry of Education worked together to build over 1,000 new classrooms in Kabul during 2011. This gave girls in the capital greater access to education and resources. This was complemented by the work of other organisations, like the UK-based non-profit organisation Children in Crisis, which has an international presence. Children in Crisis works closely with the local communities in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, to see how the local people view education and what skills they think will help girls to have a better standard of living and help them and their community. In response to the community's needs, Children in Crisis have started to run community-based classes which empower young girls and women by teaching them literacy and vocational skills like tailoring, which they can then use to create an income for themselves without having to have the help of their husbands. Community classes like this encourage empowerment by providing a safe environment where women can meet and talk without male family members, something which not all Afghan women are normally given the chance to do due to cultural traditions. While both these schemes enhance girls' lives by improving their access to education and providing them with a safe place to learn new skills and socialise with other girls in their community, these schemes can also be criticised for only improving education in one area. While Kabul is the capital and it is a densely populated area of the country, which has many girls without access to education, what about other areas of the country? Surely girls across the country deserve a right to education too. And without knowledgeable teachers, which girls can look up to as positive role models, how effective is the building of new schools anyway? That's why, shortly after the end of Taliban rule, UNICEF provided teacher training for more than 50,000 teachers. They're also working alongside the Afghan government to reform teacher training, recruit more female teachers, and create more teacher training facilities across Afghanistan, which could help more girls across the country have an empowering experience of education. While Afghanistan's 2015 Education for All review did highlight that there is still a long way to go, it did show that the safety for girls' education has improved and that the number of girls in schools has been rising since 2005 in Afghanistan. And thanks to the help of international organisations, access to schools can improve Afghan girls' lives by empowering them to actively participate in their social sphere by providing opportunities for them to gather together, share experiences and build self-confidence. So, with the help of international organisations, this means that there is hope for girls in Afghanistan, and that by working alongside the government of Afghanistan and local communities, rather than enforcing beliefs upon the country, international organisations have helped to improve the lives of Afghan girls through education. And by continuing to work closely with the Afghan government and local people, international organisations can help ensure that Afghan girls have a brighter, more equal future as a result of education.